right, good morning. It's good to see you. And of course, yes, we have organically transitioned to your world, as Mark said. So I hope you've had a better start to the day. Welcome to the show. This is Your World. My name is Winnie Lubembe. And of course, today we want to understand more about clefts. And of course, in this sense, is the cleft lip and or palate. And of course, we all know that clefts are the leading birth defect in many developing countries, with cleft incidence rate of approximately 1 in 1,200 births for individuals of African descent. Well, it is estimated that more than 200,000 children are born with a cleft every year. And in Africa, more than 32,000 children are born with a cleft lip and or palate annually, while in Kenya, an annual figure of 1,300 cleft births annually is reported. So what exactly is it about cleft lip or palate? And again, what more do you need to understand? What are the symptoms? What are the treatment options, if there is? Because there's usually a lot of conversation about, is it treatable? Well, you'll find that out more on the conversation today, even as we prepare for the World Smile Day, which will be on 7th. Okay, but of course, you know us, we start the conversations early so that we create awareness, and help pass as much information out there as possible. So, you know the drill by now. If you have any other question in relation to the conversation of the day, feel free to engage with us. The numbers are down on your screen. Give us a call. You can actually start calling as early as now. Again, because sometimes the lines, can be jumped because of so many calls. So if you have any question in relation to the conversation, feel free to do so. Or better yet, engage with us on our social media platforms at NTV Kenya. Tag me as well at Lubembe_Winnie. And of course on Facebook as well, it's at NTV Kenya. And by the end of the conversation, let's understand clefts and of course what we need to do in the event that we have or we know someone who has a child with a cleft. But to help us with the conversation, I have Dr. Tom Osundwa, who's an oral and maxillofacial surgeon from Gertrude's Children's Hospital. How are you doing this morning?
Fine.
Sheesh, some of these titles, maxillofacial, okay, can be a little bit of a tongue twister, but it's so good to see you this morning. You're well?
Yes, I'm well.
Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we also have Anastasia Kingori, who's a clinical nutritionist at AIC Kijabe Hospital. How are you doing this morning? I can see you have a small baby.
Yes, I do.
Joining us as well on studio. So again, it will be interesting to know and to help us really better understand what clefts are, and of course from the nutritional aspect of the same, because again the challenges are so many. So it's interesting it's important, not interesting, it's important for us to know from a nutritionist side. But Dr. Tom, let's just start with you, because again, we mentioned clefts, and then there's cleft lip, and then there's the cleft palate. All right, what exactly are this?
Cleft lip and palate is the commonest head and neck deformity.
All right.
If you are looking at deformities in the head and neck, the most common is cleft lip and palate.
All right.
And when you are looking at deformities of the human body, most of the times cleft lip and palate is amongst the top 5. So it's a deformity that is common.
All right.
This is a deformity that affects the lip. The lip basically is mainly the muscles around or that surround the mouth opening.
All right.
So it involves the lip and then the roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth is what divides the mouth or the oral cavity and the nose or the nasal cavity. So the clefts are varied. They can be small, they can be extensive.
All right.
You may have clefts that can also be isolated, so they are only clefts alone, but clefts can also occur with other diseases.
All right.
Then you call them syndromic.
All right.
So it's heterogeneous. It's a big entity, but basically it's a deformity of the face, grotesque, sometimes with a lot of stigma in our society, and not only stigma, there are aesthetic aspects of it, there are functional aspects of it, like feeding difficulties in those who are affected, speech difficulties in speech, and as you know, the face is what identifies you.
That's true.
The face is what, when you go for an interview, when you go for an interview, they're looking at your face. When you are looking for a wife or a husband, they are looking at your face.
Yeah.
So I think the face is an important and an integral part of the human being.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why this disease entity is also important for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll come back to understand more, because sometimes we see one with maybe cleft maybe on one side of the lip. Sometimes we see both, you know, both sides. Sometimes we see, again, a palate as well, like cleft palate. So what is it that brings about one person has maybe just one, right? And then the other one has two, or again, both cleft lips and palate as well. But before that, Anastasia, because we have a dummy, just to make it easier for people to understand what, you know, Dr. has extensively explained to us. So this one we see both. Okay, so just take us through the same, yeah?
Yes, this dummy has what you call a bilateral cleft lip. And a complete palate.
Right.
Yeah, so by bilateral it means it's on both sides, and it extends to the nasal cavity, and also the roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth is all open. So this is a bilateral cleft lip and palate.
And palate.
Yes.
And I know when we talk about, of course, a child and birth and, you know, all those things, most of the time we usually go back to pregnancy. What is it that you did during pregnancy? Or sometimes we actually see people blaming, you know, a mother that this is what you did during pregnancy that caused the same. And I know when we talk about cleft lip, again, I'm pretty sure you've had a lot of people say this, that maybe the mother did something, or they blame themselves that maybe I did something to cause this to my baby. So just help us demystify if it is a myth, or are there like some bit of a relationship between pregnancy, what the mother did or did not do, and cleft lip?
That's a very good question, because I think when mothers are pregnant, everyone expects, your prayer and hope is that the outcome will be very okay. Yeah? And as Dr. has said, there are many causes of cleft, and some causes are not known. If I was to probably categorize them, we have maybe it can be genetic disposition and environmental factors, but we still have those reasons whereby are not known. Maybe a mother did everything that they were expected to do, they were supposed to do. They actually prepared for a pregnancy. They went to hospital and they started taking their folic acid early enough, but they still got a child with cleft. So we have, the causes are many. It can be either because of genetic disposition or environmental factors. And environmental factors vary. It can be from maybe they didn't have sufficient folic acid, which is not the main cause, because as I have said, some you might even have started taking your folic acid 3 months way earlier. Of course, there are other reasons whereby maybe if you expose yourselves to what you call teratogens, chemicals that might interfere with fetal development during pregnancy, alcohol, consumption of alcohol, smoking some medications can cause this, but all the causes are not fully known or understood. So I think what I would want to tell parents, sometimes it's not known, it's not something that you did, and the cleft, when you get a child with cleft, this is a journey. This is a journey that you walk with many people, with doctors, with your family, and the first thing is don't blame yourself. It's not because of something that you did, and even if maybe there's something that you would have done to prevent. At this point, we want to see how can we help this child? How can we work with you to really help this child?
Moving beyond, I wish I did this, or I wish I did that, really. But just focus on how then do we help this child. All right. And Dr. you said it is one of the most commonest, you know, deformities, and this is when it comes to the facial, right? And that question of bilateral, or sometimes you see one with just, you know, a cleft, right? And then others, you also get both the lip and on the palate. So what are some of the maybe causes of the same?
I think the difference in the way a disease presents is scientifically called phenotype.
All right.
So the cleft is a disease entity that is heterogeneous. It has a big variation. That variation can be, we can go back and look at the variation in terms of the etiological factors or the factors that are involved in the formation of cleft.
All right.
You will find that most of the times cleft occurs as a mixture between environmental and genetic factors.
All right.
And when you look at genetic factors, we have many genes. Like now, we have over 14 established genes that have been associated with clefting.
All right.
So you may find in one cleft, probably there's just one gene mutation. And so the cleft comes out as a simple cleft.
All right.
Then you find in another cleft, there are several. Might be 3 genes are mutated. Because the way our body is programmed is that each gene has a step in the formation of the face. By day 21, you're beginning to form your face. It's a very tightly regulated process in both the growth and development. And you find that each step is regulated by a gene. So you may find that several steps are missed because several genes are involved. And so the defect might be bigger, may involve other parts of the body. And so a big component of the disparity is the genes, but also environmental. Sometimes, and that is why we insist on the use of supplementation in pregnancy. Because sometimes somebody may carry the gene, but the use of certain supplements like folic acid may reduce the severity of the defect when it comes. Some of the defects come with other conditions, and those are like the syndromic types. Some may come because of factors within the parents. Sometimes you have conditions like Downs that are related with age, maternal age, and probably some of the severity in the clefts may also be towards that. But basically, the severity is because more aspects of the formation are involved.
All right. And of course, this again impacts a person's life, and of course, in this sense, a child, right? Because your advice, you need to breastfeed your child for the first, nutritionists, you're smiling, I can see you in the sachet, the first 6 months, exclusive breastfeeding. But then again, of course, in this case, a child might not be able to breastfeed. So can we just talk about how having a cleft might or not even might, because it impacts a child's life really. So can we talk about how that affects a child's, you know, ability to feed and to get all the nutrients that they need, and even for the mother as well?
Okay, that's a good question. It's true, WHO recommends that we exclusively breastfeed for the first 6 months of life, and then after that, continued breastfeeding up to 2 years or beyond. A child with cleft, their nutritional needs are still the same as a child who doesn't have a cleft. But as you have said, one of the challenges is feeding. And the extent, the degree of challenge depends on the type of cleft that this child has. And for children who just have a cleft lip, it is actually possible to breastfeed. All you need to do is probably modify the breastfeeding position if it's just a cleft lip alone. The challenge comes in when now the child has maybe a cleft lip and now a palate. For those who have palates, breastfeeding directly on the breast can become, it's more difficult and it's more challenging. Does that mean that these children should not get breast milk? No. So what really happens is when a mom gets a child with a cleft, most of them are stressed because you probably didn't know this from ultrasound, or you are not aware. And as I had said, every mother expects a normal outcome. And then when you get a child with a cleft, this is probably the first time you are seeing something like this. So what comes in? stress comes in, and we know that stress is the #1 killer of breast milk.
It is, yeah.
And the other thing, when this mother gets a child with a cleft, the first contact is really important, whether it's in a hospital setup, whether it's a clinic setup. The first contact with this mother really depends how will the feeding be, because feeding will be a challenge.
That's true.
And so if we really want to start good feeding, this mother really needs support from day one. And support comes in from understanding, what is this? What is wrong with my baby? How comes I've never seen that? So it starts by explaining why the baby is the way it is. And then from there, how can we help this baby in terms of feeding? So for those who have children with cleft palates, it's important for them to be taught.
All right.
How do you position? How can we use different breastfeeding positions to nurse this baby?
Right.
And if feeding is not possible, we start by teaching them, how can you express your milk and ensure that this baby still gets breast milk?
Right.
So the first thing is the pediatrician, the medical team will do an assessment and explain and get to know, because if it's a palate alone, sometimes a palate might be missed.
Yes.
A palate might be missed, and a mother goes home and the baby is not growing, the baby is not gaining weight. If thorough assessment was not done in the hospital facility, or if the child was born at home, the mother just notices there's something different about my baby is just crying. So it starts by an assessment, trying to assist the mother, and it's not just talking to them, it's practically helping them, because feeding is a learned skill. Even breastfeeding,
It's true, because most of the time we just think it's a normal
Sometimes
thing. The
we
baby
think
will come,
it's
put
a
it on the
natural
breast.
thing. I just need to hold my baby and start nursing. So you have to practically help this mother depending on the type of cleft that they really have.
Absolutely.
And even those who have palate, we encourage the moms, put the baby on the breast, and then now we can give express breast milk, because breast milk is still very important for this. And in terms of advantage for these children, it helps to strengthen the muscles around the face. And it will also help later even with speech. So even when they exercise those muscles, it's very important. It has benefits. It's a natural substance. So even when it's regurgitated, because these children lick milk, milk comes out through the nose, because it's a natural substance, it's less irritating. So it decreases infections, which is one of the challenges that these children it's one of the challenges that these children experience. So you want to help the mother and helping them practically. How can I ensure that my child gets breast milk, benefits from breast milk? Because remember, the goal is this child needs to grow for surgery to take place. So support is very important. The mother should not leave the hospital facility without adequate help. And if she goes home and still experiences challenges, she needs to come back, to address any challenges that she's facing.
Absolutely. And of course, I like the fact that you emphasize, don't just give information, practically show. Because again, it can be a difficult time. You're trying to deal with the fact that this is my child and this is, you know, the defect that my child has. So of course, it's even difficult for you as a mom, because you're feeling for your child, right? So helping them in always and all kinds of support will be very, very important. We'll come back to you to show us, because we have our dummy, and of course we also have like our dummy breast over there to sort of like just help moms out there to really understand how this happens. But aside from feeding, and I can see we have very few minutes to go on a break, so aside from feeding, what are some of the other challenges that children born with cleft face, Dr. Then we'll go break and then we'll come back with more.
I think the children born with clefts have very many challenges. Feeding is just one. The face is very near the head and the brain, and sometimes you find that deformities of the face occur with deformities in the brain. And quite a number of children who have clefts are born as stillbirths. They die before even being able to be born. And so that is the extreme. when you come to the feeding is a challenge, but also speech. And remember, speech is the way in which you communicate, and it's very important for people to understand you. So children who have cleft palate normally have difficulty in speech, but also those with severe clefts may have elements within the brain that are interfered with and may have a diminished kind of development in the brain. Those are the severe cases.
All right.
And so you may have an accompanying impairment or diminished brain function.
All right.
Sorry, you may also have the eyes. Sometimes clefts can cut through. There are those severe facial clefts that may involve the eyes.
All right.
So you may have impairment of eye function. You may have them cutting through the nose. So you may have disfigurement and sometimes impairment of functions related to the nose.
All right.
We have said because of the openness of some clefts, they may have recurrent infections. And as Anastasia pointed out, middle-ear infections can be common in these patients.
All right.
So clefts may also be associated, those children with clefts may also be associated or have associated deformities in the body. One of the areas that we see quite a number of deformities is the heart. Normally, patients with clefts sometimes may have heart problems, different forms of heart problems.
All right.
And so early in this children's assessment, we normally have a pediatrician involved, a pediatric cardiologist involved very early. They may also have limb deformities. Sometimes you have children with clefts and their digits, both the hands, they are fused.
Yeah.
We call that syndactyly.
All right.
So they may be born with that kind of a defect. And so there are many defects that may occur with clefting.
With cleft lip, yeah. But the good thing is that, like we said earlier on, there is treatment for clefts.
Definitely.
Of course, we'll be talking about it, and
treatment.
it's important for all of us to know that there is a treatment. So really, there is hope for all the parents watching us, and maybe you have a child who has a cleft, not to despair, because there is a treatment. But of course, there are also challenges when it comes to accessing treatment, which again we'll be talking about shortly. But remember, like we said, we have if you have any other question, feel free to engage with us at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and Twitter, and as well tag me at Lubembe_Winnie, and of course we'll be looking at them and we'll be answering all your questions. But again, if you want to get an immediate answer, feel free to also give us a call, speak directly to Anastasia or Dr. Tom, and of course you'll get all the answers as far as a cleft is concerned. And of course, in this sense, we're talking about cleft lip and or palate. So stay with us. We're coming back very shortly. This is Your World. See you soon.
Mivida Garden City, a residential development within Garden City offering stunning 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, unique amenities and an urban green convenient living. Call us today on 0722 123 000. Mivida, my home, my life.
If you are a holder of any unclaimed financial assets, surrender all unclaimed financial assets in your possession to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, today without having to pay interest or penalties. Take advantage of the Finance Act 2022 moratorium on penalties and interests. For more information, visit www.ufaa.go.ke/holders. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Mivida
Mivida Garden City, the latest residential development within Garden City, offering stunning 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments and never before seen amenities. The development is part of the already established 47-acre Garden City mixed-use development on Thika Road, providing urban, green, convenient living. Call us today on 0722 123 000 to book a viewing or visit mividahomes.com. Mivida, my home, my life.
Do pimples have you covering up and hiding? Well, let's treat acne in 3 easy steps. Acne's Creamy Wash for acne-prone skin removes excess oil and dirt. Acne's Soothing Toner soothes inflammation, nourishes and hydrates skin. Acne's Sealing Gel clears acne-causing bacteria. Mentholatum Acne's, a new beginning for clear skin.
Next on Daring Abroad.
Every cow has a number.
Okay. It's a marvel at modern technology in cattle farming in the Netherlands as Kenyan-born Dorothy Atema introduces us to her in-laws in Friesland province, the origin of the Frisian cow.
Several times we have come to help them, me and my husband and my son.
These cattle, they are producing a lot of milk.
On our back home segment, Turako Inter-County Resort and its signature attractions.
We actually came on Google Maps and it brought us all the way. We didn't know the location.
On my far right, that is the Nandi escarpment. On my back here, hapo kuna Lake Victoria. Then on this other side, those are the Maragoli Hills.
This Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on NTV.
Crystal Rivers Residences along Mombasa Road comprises 3-bedroomed apartments, 3-bedroomed and 4-bedroom townhouses. The only mixed-use development close to the Nairobi Expressway. Easy payment plans available. Terms and conditions apply. Call 0757 620 202.
Retirement Benefits Authority will be in Nakuru at the Huduma Center from Monday 3rd to 7th October. Our officers will be on the ground to answer questions you have on saving for retirement, registering and licensing of schemes, member education, and retirement planning and financial literacy. Nakuru, here we come.
Piga simu bila kikomo kwa saa moja kwa 20 bob tu uendelee kuongea na uwapendao. Piga star 444 star 22 hash au tembelea My Safaricom app leo.
Retirement Benefits Authority will be in Nakuru at the Huduma Center from Monday 3rd to 7th October. Our officers will be on the ground to answer questions you have on saving for retirement, registering and licensing of schemes, member education, and retirement planning and financial literacy.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. The show is Your World, and today it's all about understanding cleft, and of course in this sense, cleft lip and palate as well. And of course we have Anastasia Kingori, a clinical nutritionist, as well as Dr. Thomas Sundwa, who's an oral and maxillofacial surgeon, to help us really understand what clefts are and what you can do in the event that, especially for parents, you notice that, again, your child has cleft lip and or palate, what you need to do. All right, and of course we talked about earlier on the fact that there is treatment. So how is treatment like for clefts? Well, stick around for a little bit longer, but of course, Anastasia, we were talking about how this impacts a child's ability to grow, and that is getting all the nutrients and all those things. So speaking about what they might lack in terms of nutrition, right, and how this affects or impacts their growth, what exactly is it that they might be missing out because maybe they're not feeding well, or they're not getting adequate, maybe milk supply from the mother? And then there's a lot that is happening, especially right now. We're dealing with drought in almost over half of the counties in the country that are facing drought.
I think we first start by understanding that these children still need nutrition like 100%. Any other children. Yes. And the best nutrition at this point is breast milk. It's the
yeah.
first alternative.
All right.
So how do you help the mother to ensure that she gives breast milk to her child? It starts by helping her deal with the stress, accept this child. Because with accepting the child and understanding that her milk production will not be affected, because we say stress is a number one killer of, so how can we ensure that her milk supply remains constant? By teaching her how to stay hydrated, teaching her, even if she doesn't have to breastfeed directly, because these babies may not be able to breastfeed directly. They have a weak sac, they have an anrhythmic sac. They may tire easily before they complete a feed, especially those who have pellets. And they might be using a lot of energy trying to nurse, and that energy is not being translated to now growth. Remember, they need to grow and develop even as we prepare for surgery. So number one is, how can we help the mother maintain her supply? Teaching her what will reduce your supply and what can increase your milk supply. So relaxation techniques, massaging her breasts, expressing milk to give to the baby, teaching her how do you store this milk, how do you feed this baby to them, how do you feed this milk to your child, and still also have those bonding moments whereby you put the baby on the breast. So the number one thing, because breast milk is free, it is affordable, it's not expensive. Knowing that we have other alternatives, but you should never go to other alternatives before considering all factors. That's the mistake sometimes we do. We say that children born with clefts can't breastfeed. And we sometimes, maybe the first contact, they introduce maybe something like formula, but you have not factored in everything. Is it affordable? Is it available where do they know how to mix, to constitute this? Is it sustainable? Because we say this child needs the best nutrition for the first 6 months of life. And at that point, if you don't teach the mother, they go to other alternatives. The baby comes back to hospital, they are not gaining weight. Let's give an example. If a child is given cow's milk, why can't we give cow's milk to children? We say that it's not an ideal feed actually for the first year of life. So why can't we give baby something like cow's milk? Why is it not an alternative? You compare it with breast milk. We say like now cow milk, the protein is 2 times double what is in breast milk, and it's difficult to digest. It will strain the immature kidneys even to excrete it. It might lead to dehydration. It might also lead to, it actually affects, strains the infant's lining, stomach lining, and the intestines. It can lead to blood loss, leading to anemia. That will further now make surgery even more difficult. So the first thing is helping the mom ensure that she's giving the right nutrition to the baby. And we had also talked about breastfeeding and how can you modify positions with different clefts. And I can demonstrate that. So should I go?
Yes, please.
So like a child who, so we know the normal breastfeeding positions. This is a normal breastfeeding position. So like a child who has a unilateral, just a cleft on one side, you can do what you call the modified cradle hold. When I say the normal way we hold a child is this way. When you modify it, you're trying, you support your child with one hand, and the other hand is on your breast. And what you're doing, you're putting the cleft away from the breast. That is when for a child who just has a cleft on one side. For those who have unilateral, there's another position you can use. There's what you call the modified football hold, whereby you remember like the American football, the way we hold the ball. So you support your baby maybe with a pillow. You can support the baby's head with your hand, and the other, and then you're trying to put the baby upright in an upright position, face to face, and then you hold your breast, and then now introduce the baby's mouth direct to the breast. If the child has a bilateral cleft lip, that is if the cleft is on both sides. There are those who have very weak sacs, especially if they have a palate or the cleft is very wide. You can still use a different position which you call the dancer hand position, whereby you are supporting with your hand the web of your thumb and the pointing finger. You support their jaw. And then the other 3 fingers are supporting your breast, and you help the child suckle. As you do that, you are also helping them compress the breast. But still with these positions, these children may need you to help them further by expressing your milk, which is now something that you need to be taught in hospital, because as we said, it's also something that you need to be taught. How do you express your milk, and how do you go about feeding this child to ensure that the baby gets enough, and how much are you giving the baby, and how often are you giving the baby? Yes, and what signs are you looking for to ensure that this baby is growing? Because with feeding, we need to see results. Yes.
All right. And then for the palate, because I can imagine if it's the like again the palate's right it's on this other side. So a parent might be scared. I mean, a mom might be scared. What if my baby chokes? What, you know, in this sense? So what happens?
So it's true, one of the challenges we experience with breastfeeding, there's a lot of gagging and choking with these children, especially for children with palates. And that's why even that position I demonstrated, weak sac, there's a way you support the baby, and this is something you need to practically do with a mother. But this baby may not complete a feed by just breastfeeding. That's why we have also special bottles. Special bottles that we can use. When you express your milk, you can't just use the normal bottle, because some mothers come to hospital, they have bought the normal bottle, and what they do, they increase the nipple size. And that is very risky, because the child has no control over the flow of milk, and that now can actually lead to maybe this baby choking, what you call aspiration, the milk going into the wrong place, and now leading even to anemia. So when they come to hospital, we want to tell the mothers that there are other gadgets, equipment that you can use to feed this child your expressed breast milk. So we have special bottles in the market. And in cleft centers, which Maltrain supports, you are able to get those bottles. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I like the fact that you're...
Sorry,
oh, yes, go
sorry,
ahead,
I just
yeah.
wanted to add something to what Anastasia said, that breastfeeding is advantageous to the mother. Whereas the mother is stressed, the milk yield might be low, putting the child on the breast helps one with bonding. So it's very important that even as all these things are happening, the mother is putting this child on the breast and bonding with the child. It also triggers a lot of chemical reactions in the body that help to balance the mother's psychic, because childbirth is associated with a lot of depression in many instances, and sometimes that breastfeeding helps balance the hormones so that you have a mother who is better placed in terms of her psychological well-being. And in addition, we've talked about prevention of ear infections, but not only ear infections, many other infections. And giving your child an advantage, because there are so many antibodies in the breast milk and so on. So the mother has to fight to feed this child so that more breast milk comes and they actually bond with this child. We have extreme cases. The children who are born with very severe defects and totally unable to feed, then we ask those mothers to come with the children to hospital. Because now in the hospital, those are few cases, and they may be special needs, and we may put for them special feeding tubes and allow the child to grow and win them from that.
Okay, and of course at the end of the day get all the nutrients that they need for growth. Because Anastasia also mentioned the fact that this child again needs to grow really for surgery to happen. But before you talk about the treatment, Dr. very quickly, someone might ask, so then at what point do you peak cleft lip? Is it, cleft, whether palate or lip, is it maybe when the child is still in the womb, or?
Yes, nowadays we have ultrasound, and many mothers are going in for ultrasound, especially in the late period of pregnancy. One may be able to pick. But this also depends on the fetal position.
All right.
So I wouldn't blame the ultrasound for not identifying a cleft. It's very positional, and you may miss a cleft because of the position of the child.
All right.
But in many instances now, you can pick it during intrauterine, when the child is in the womb.
All right.
And that is good because it allows you to begin preparing the mother or the family. We keep mentioning mothers, but the fathers are also there because they play a very big and supportive role.
Important, yeah.
And so you begin preparing the family at that point.
Okay.
And start telling them what aspects, what support they need, and showing them members of the team, and begin educating them, allowing them to educate themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important to just have that moment of preparation support, so that when the baby comes, you're not surprised that, you know, what is happening here.
Yes.
All right. And then for treatment, because I can see your time is far much spent, and would not want us to finish this conversation without talking about the treatment of the seam. So what are some of the options that are available, or is just surgery is the only way?
Normally, we now have comprehensive cleft care.
Right.
Comprehensive cleft care means a lot of the needs of the cleft child are taken care of in a setting that recognizes that that care is multidisciplinary.
All right.
And it involves various professionals, and that's why you are seeing myself here, you are seeing Anastasia here, and many more would have come. It's a multidisciplinary team. We normally treat the lip at 3 months in our setup. You may find in some areas treatment may be earlier, but one of the guiding factors is safe anesthesia for these children, which requires good development of the organs. Then we operate on the palate from 1 year. Normally for safe anesthesia and for the structures to have developed. So at 1 year we operate on the palate. Then at around 7-8 years, sometimes we put bone grafts to fill in the bone defects. And then later on, for those with the severe bone deformities in their teens, we can then do bone surgery called orthognathic surgery.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, but when we talk about treatment, and every time you mention surgery, of course, it's that at the back of our minds are like costs. The cost of the same can be expensive. So for clefts, right? What does that
cleft surgery, and I think, thank you, Winnie, for asking this question, because I think it's important for families out there to know that there's free treatment of these deformities.
All right.
Free treatment from the child's inception and up to when the child is totally assimilated into the community.
All right.
One of the organizations that does this is Smile Train. I work for Smile Train in Gertrude's Children's Hospital. That's one of the centers. There are many centers in the country. But you just need to walk in if you're a mother with a cleft child.
All right.
And you don't need any money, you don't need any insurance, you don't need any card.
Yeah.
You just walk in and we identify and we enlist you and we follow up on your treatment to the end.
Yeah.
So there's free treatment, and it's important that families don't hide these children. Most of these children have very normal cognitive, normal development, and are able to contribute to the society. In fact, indeed, many of them, as I have seen over the years, are very bright children and come out to be very valuable members of the community.
Of the community.
Yeah.
And Anastasia, of course, there's that question of, I mean, a lot is happening right now in the country, and drought, like I said, is one of the things that, again, is affecting so many families. You know, millions of Kenyans actually are facing starvation. So I can imagine a family with, again, a child who has a cleft might be difficult because, again, there's no, first of all, there's no food, right, for the mother, and then because we need breast milk to feed the child. So then in this situation, what is it that, you know, moms can do? And Dr. said, where are the dads? Don't exclude the dads. So families, let's just say families can do.
Yeah, support is very key, especially to the mother, even for her to be able to breastfeed. And I see success when you see a couple coming in together, family supporting this child. It's true what you have said. Breast milk, and remember these children after 6 months, we still need to introduce now complementary foods. I'm saying complementary because it's breast milk plus additional now food. So I work in AIC Kijabe Hospital, which is one of a partner hospital with Smile Train. So, and we also have another hospital just next to us, which is QA. It's also a Smile Train partner. So because it's comprehensive, you come see the nutritionist and we are able to see how can we assist you as a family. Smile Train has this program whereby we are able to assist families with these children, even if it's supplementation, what can we supplement? Whatever is available. So as long as they identify those centers and we identify their needs, we are able to walk with you this journey until surgery happens, ensure that this child is growing, because when they come also, what you want to do is monitor their growth. You take their weight, you take their height, and then compare the graph. Are you growing? What is happening? We address the challenges. So we see how can we work together to ensure that this child is operated at the right time, this child is growing. Of course, we may not be able to solve all problems, but we try and see how can we help these families. Is it supplementation in terms of food? And sometimes it's challenging because if you supplement, you have to factor in the other children at home. Maybe this is a mother with 5 under 5. So if you supplement, what about the other children? How do I ensure that this whatever I've given goes to this child? But that's where now you also work with the government, other facilities, how social workers, how can we help these families? So it's more of working together. Yes,
and that kind of support really is important because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, this child gets all the nutrients that they need, they're growing as they're supposed to, and all those things. So the results, Dr. it's immediate. After surgery, right? You see the results immediate, and even after care, what does that look like?
I think the surgery has evolved. So with time, we have improved on our outcomes. So I would say these children are given an equal chance in life. And they need to come early because some of the deformities, like the palate, need to be repaired before the neurological aspect of speech, before the child begins talking. Because at 1.5 years, your child is beginning to talk. If you delay the palate repair and repair it at 3 years, then it becomes difficult for that person to re-begin or restart again the speech. So it's good to do it before the normal speech period. And so period is important, and seeking help, I think, is also important because the outcomes now are outcomes that integrate our patients fully into society.
Into the society. All right, and very quickly, Dr. Before we wind up, of course, we're talking about surgery, but just paint that picture for us so that someone really understands when we say surgery, especially for the lip, right? Brings the lip back together and, right, everything just looks normal.
Yes, the surgery of the lip is something that many specialties train in, and normally we first require somebody to have either plastic surgery, maxillofacial, pediatric surgery backgrounds, but it's something most of those doctors who have specialized in those areas can easily be taught, and they can be able to do. It is when you are looking at very good outcomes, then it becomes complicated, but not very complicated. There are severe clefts that now become very complicated, especially when we have clefts that involve the midline. And involve brain tissue that is coming out into that cleft.
Yeah.
And so we have to do combined procedures with the neurosurgery and maxillofacial. And so those are more complicated. But just the simple, the simple clefts are fairly straightforward surgeries that have measurable and predictable outcomes.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the results, and really it's amazing. It's amazing to see. And I think this is a chance to call out for all the parents, all the families, you know, with a child with a cleft. Just take them to a hospital. It is free. The surgery is absolutely free, so no reason really to not have your child taken care of. So we need to end this, but I'm gonna just ask you again, World Smile Day is coming up on the 7th, right? What is it that you hope to see? What is it that you want to see, and especially in relation to clefts? Let me start with you, Anastasia, then Dr. I'll give you like 30 seconds because I've got part of your parting shot. Anastasia, what do you say?
I think more smiles, ensuring that those children born with clefts, that they have better smiles. Whatever we can do, let's just give them that smile. Yes.
All right. And Dr. What do you say?
I want to see the families of the cleft child participating more. I probably want to watch you from my living room, interviewing the families of the children, and more for them to take up some of the roles like education, advocacy, policy, like folic acid fortification of our cereals. Those are policies that government can be pushed into. And so we need advocacy from the family side, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to.
In this year's World Smile Day. Remember, it will be on the 7th of October, and of course this is usually again celebrated every year. That is in the month of October, and yeah, so we hope to see that happen. And Dr. We'll hold ourselves accountable to speak to some of these families, and also just give hope to other families who again are still struggling with stigma, because like we said, there's a lot of stigma associated with the same. So just demystify all those things and just make sure that every child has access to treatment. So thank you so much to both of you, Anastasia Kingori, clinical nutritionist at AIC Kijabe Hospital, as well as Dr. Tom Osundwa, oral and maxillofacial surgeon at Gertrude's Children's Hospital. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
to both
much,
of you
Winnie,
for coming by today. I know you have a better understanding as far as clefts are concerned, of course, and this is cleft lip and palate. So you have the information, pass the information to someone who's next to you, and of course if you know of a family who has a child who has a cleft, you know what to do, because again treatment is absolutely free. So digest on that information, and of course we'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on Your World. And of course a special thank you to everybody who put together and made sure that the show is a success. My name is Winnie Lubembe. Have yourselves a good one, stay safe, and as always, God bless. See you tomorrow.